Every time he pitches, Hayden Birdsong is looking more like a front of the rotation type of arm. Here's why. It actually does make some sense, though, that he's pitching out of the bullpen.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes, Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and RotoGraphs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there where we've got full video and everything, if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console required. Head to amazon.com/firetvlockedon to learn more. And coming up on today's show, I know I said yesterday that we'd be doing a crossover with Javi from Locked On Padres. I messed that up. The timing didn't work out, and so we're not going to be doing that today. I hope to do that after the series when Javi and I can line up. So last week we had a lot of mailbag questions. I think it was last week, and I only got to a tiny fraction. I think we had 67 questions, and so today we're just going to continue reading them and answering your questions. So many people asked about Hayden Birdsong and the starting rotation. And so I'm just going to read 2 of them, but there was like 15. Jeremy, it says Jeremy, but maybe I copied that wrong. Jeremy says, would adding Birdsong and Wizenhunt to the rotation be a major upgrade? And then Joel says, when will Birdsong take his rightful spot in the rotation? So I like the first question too, because Carson Wizenhunt, who's not only not in the major leagues, but also who is not even on the 40-man roster, but he's a name worth mentioning, I think, because my goodness, do the Giants have some young, talented pitching depth. And Hayden Birdsong is at the front of the list of guys who are young and talented and yet not in the San Francisco Giants rotation. But as I said in the open, I think there's a reason, or that it makes some logical sense as to why Birdsong is not yet being given that chance. I think we all know it makes some logical sense, but more so than that, what I'm talking about is that I think that his time will come, and I kind of looked at, it was like a coincidence. I was looking at some great pitcher. I forget who it was. I was looking at their player page, and I was just observing the fact that for the first few years of their career, they were kind of like, in and out of the bullpen and maybe putting up some bloated numbers. But then eventually they became the aces / Hall of Famers that they've come to be. And so I'm not saying Birdsong is going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm also not saying he's not. I don't want to put a ceiling on anybody, but young pitchers need to conserve their arms a little bit. And also I'm thinking about down the road, like if you are thinking about Hayden Birdsong and thinking about the Giants potentially making the postseason and what your best pitching rotation looks like if you make the postseason, if you want Birdsong in it, and if you want him pitching in September, and if he's clearly like one of your best options down the stretch there, then it's better to hold him back now and let him go later, because you don't have typically 23-year-old arms who, last year Birdsong threw 57 1/3 innings in the minors and 72 innings in the majors. So quick math, that's about 130 innings. And so I guess, I mean, that's a solid amount. And the previous year, he threw 100 innings. And the previous year, he was drafted and threw only 11 2/3. So, he threw in college that year. I think it was, college. And I don't know how many innings he threw there. But so 100 in 2023, 130 in 2024. I don't think you just make the jump and go 180. I don't know, whatever. Maybe you do. But the fact is, too, that if you look at the pitchers who are in the Giants rotation, obviously Logan Webb not going anywhere, nor should he, of course. Landon Roop, I think, okay, great. You are giving an opportunity to a young pitcher. The ERA is a little bit bloated at 4.56, but all the peripheral numbers, expected ERA 3.23, fielding independent pitching 3.45, on and on. Like that ERA, I expect to come down and match those other numbers and therefore be good. So it's Jordan Hicks, Robbie Ray, Justin Verlander. Like those are the candidates to not be in the rotation if you were to add a guy like Hayden Birdsong. And so Jordan Hicks gets a lot of heat, I think, because, I mean, let's face it, he's got a 6.12 ERA. And last year and this year combined, in 142 innings with the Giants, a 4.56 ERA, a 4.21 fielding independent pitching. It's just nothing super impressive there. However, for Jordan Hicks, the expected ERA is 3.93. The fielding independent pitching is 3.68. Ground ball heavy, keeps the ball in the ballpark. And I don't know. Also, the stuff quality we can measure now a little bit better and has kind of burst onto the scene as a mainstream thing. And his sinker grades above average, slider above average, fastball a little bit below average, like his four-seam fastball, but he doesn't throw it much. And then his splitter grades as above average. So overall, his stuff grades as 10% above major league average. And the location has actually been decent. So when you look at those peripheral numbers and you look at the quality of the stuff, I understand not just jumping ship on Jordan Hicks as a starter. And when I also add my point about conserving, like saving bullets basically with Hayden Birdsong and not just using them up all now, especially the team is winning. Like that's another thing too. And also Jordan Hicks would be disgruntled. And so that's another thing too. But if the peripheral numbers were bad, if the stuff quality was bad, and the ERA was bad, I would be 100% like they need to switch these two. But it's those peripheral numbers, like I said, expected ERA, fielding independent pitching, being much better than the ERA, plus the stuff quality kind of backing that up. I'm like, okay, I understand continuing to let him go out there until he fails over a large enough span of time. Now with Verlander, same kind of deal. The stuff quality, every single pitch that he's thrown this year has graded as an above average pitch. It's been command that's actually let him down. And again, 4.99 ERA, but 3.85 expected ERA. And so unlucky results, it seems, for both Hicks and Verlander so far as we look through this. The fielding independent pitching is 4.11, which is not that impressive, but still better than the 4.99 ERA. Also, Verlander has never pitched out of the bullpen, not once in his 20-year career. And so I just don't see that happening at any point. He also has a no-trade clause. So that's something the previous regime didn't hand out. But this one, Buster Posey, got involved in the Matt Chapman extension. And I think what got it over the finish line was adding a full no-trade clause. And I'm not saying you want to trade Chapman, but you're kind of stuck with Verlander. Like, whatever he does, like, he's not exiting the rotation. And Robbie Ray is the last guy, and he's the guy who's got the best ERA of these veteran starters at 3.73. But ironically, all the expected numbers and all that are significantly worse than the ERA, and the stuff quality is below average, as is the location quality. The only pitch that grades as even close to above average, and it is above average, is the fastball. Everything else, the slider, the changeup, especially the changeup, not grading as a good pitch at all. And I mean, he was really good in his last start. But anyway, all of that to say, the stuff for Hayden Birdsong, I mean, the changeup is kind of like off the charts stuff wise. And the numbers, I mean, 1.13 ERA, 3.05 expected ERA, 2.94 fielding independent pitching. Like I said in the open, he belongs in a major league rotation. And I think, like, at the end of the day, you've got him for years and years and years. And eventually either someone gets hurt or somebody performs poorly, and he will get his shot. And I've just kind of come to peace with it, that it'll happen when it is the right time, and it's just not yet the right time. So coming up in just a minute, we'll answer the Wizenhunt portion of that and many more of your questions. So stay tuned for that. And first, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious? I'm always on the lookout. Well, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, if you can hear that, see it on YouTube, or on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They are always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get cracking and get snacking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, here we go. We're going to finish that question. I could talk for an entire episode about Hayden Birdsong, it seems, but I've just kind of come to peace with it. And it was really, I'll have to try to remember whose player page I was looking at that made me realize, and I knew this, but if you look at a lot of good pitchers, they started out kind of in and out of bullpens, and then they worked their way into a rotation and never looked back. And I can see that being the case with Hayden Birdsong. And I also understand why. I mean, I explained this already. Why Hicks and Verlander, given the stuff and the peripherals, are still in there, and Robbie Ray, given the actual results, is still in there. And you're not just going to cut bait this early and the team is winning. So it would be kind of a little bit tough to make a move right now. So Carson Wizenhunt is worth talking about too, although he's actually kind of had his numbers blow up in AAA. Now he's got a 5.09 ERA, but the fielding independent pitching is 3.60. So it's a notoriously tough league to pitch in, the Pacific Coast League, but he's made 5 appearances, all starts, and is averaging a little less than 5 innings per start, 24% strikeout rate, 5% walk rate, and solid projections. And so the question was, and I'll just wrap it up, would adding Birdsong and Wizenhunt to the rotation be a major upgrade? Not necessarily. And who are you replacing? I'm going to guess Jordan Hicks and Justin Verlander. Like, that would never happen, because you're not just going to cut Verlander or move them both to the bullpen. It just wouldn't happen. And also, young players like Carson Wizenhunt, there's no guarantee that he would succeed right away in the major leagues. And so, look, I really believe in Birdsong, so he may be a upgrade, but also he hasn't done it over a long period of time. Like, his career major league ERA just last year and this year is still 4.09. And we're talking about 16 innings this year. That, like, he could have a blow up outing and all the numbers shoot up. And also, he hasn't proven that he can throw. This year has been better with command, but he's had issues with command in the minor leagues. He had issues with command last year, and this year his command has still been a little below average. So he's got some things to potentially work on. He's not a finished product, but I definitely think he belongs in there at some point this year. And hopefully we see him having a huge role on a playoff team. Anyway, the next question comes from K. Fitz, who says, can we still say this team's identity is starting pitching and defense, or is it now clutch hitting with a strong bullpen? And then Blythe, 5120, says, do you think the clutch winning will be sustainable throughout the rest of the season? And keep in mind, these questions were asked before the last two walk-off wins. And so they have kept it up for at least a little while longer. Clutch winning, do I think it will be sustainable? Well, yes and no. Like, not at this pace. I don't think like winning at this pace is sustainable at all, regardless of how you're doing it. Even if like they were like, even the Dodgers probably won't have a winning percentage this good at the end of the year. So Giants are currently on 106 win pace. So we've seen this movie before. Like, it's kind of amazing that 2021 team played like this the whole year. And so it's obviously possible because we saw 2021, and I think this team is more talented. Possibly debatable given Buster Posey was on that team, but certainly more young talent and certainly more talented than the last few years when it comes to Willy Adames, who I think it'll play out, and then, you know, young players taking that leap potentially. So what was the original question? The team's identity, starting pitching and defense. So I never would have said actually that the team's identity going into the year would be starting pitching and defense. I think that the rotation was probably the biggest question mark when it was Logan Webb and a bunch of question marks. I mean, Landon Roop was unproven, and then these veterans, Hicks, Verlander, and Robbie Ray, all had question marks to go along with them, and they still do. I think it's kind of playing out as expected in the rotation. If anything, Logan Webb has exceeded expectations with a big uptick in strikeout rate, and I'm just thinking back to the bold predictions I made before the season that the Giants would have the best bullpen in the majors. So I did think that personally that the bullpen was going to be a significant strength, especially when you looked at you've got so much young talent that could be starting that would factor into that bullpen, and we're seeing that play out with like Hayden Birdsong. And the clutch hitting is not something that I could have necessarily seen coming. And also, I don't think it's necessarily something that anybody could see coming, because I think there's an element of like randomness to it. If you look back, opening day, you know, Patrick Bailey singles to tie the game with 2 outs in the ninth. What are Patrick Bailey's overall numbers? They're not pretty. They're not ones I even want to pull up because they're that ugly. It'll hurt my eyes. But, you know, he got that hit and they won that game. If he makes an out, and he's made it out like 85% of the time, pretty much. Well, no, like 80% of the time ish. He's got a 215 on base percentage, a 30 weighted runs created plus. So, you know, how can you say that? I mean, that they stole that game from the Cincinnati Reds. But this season, and we broke it down yesterday, they've done their best work in high leverage situations. And so right now, I would say the identity of the team for sure. I mean, you've got Logan Webb, so I think that's part of the identity. You've got some talented young pitching, including in the bullpen, but also like Landon Roop. But yeah, the strength of the team right now is, or the identity of the team right now is, I would say, just like an all hands on deck whatever it takes to win that particular day. And also an offense, yes, that doesn't ever see itself as out of the game, even though, as we discussed yesterday, their batting average is below average. Their on-base percentage is below average. Their slugging percentage is below average. So below average across the board. And when you take the ballpark into account, it's just kind of slightly below average offense overall. And yet they're up there in the top 10 in runs per game. And they're like number 2 in baseball, number 1 in the National League in hitting. And I don't just mean batting average. I mean like more sophisticated overall offense in high leverage situations. So for sure, to me, that currently is the identity, is that I wouldn't necessarily say like clutch hitting per se. I guess I should, but it's more like they're going to find a way. And a lot of it has, those two things go in tandem. Like the hitting being able to come back has a lot to do with the bullpen being so strong, because they're frequently getting really good games from the bullpen where the starters may allow like 3 runs, 4 runs in 5 innings, and the bullpen goes scoreless the rest of the way. And if the offense has like 2 runs early, it just gives them time, inning after inning after inning, where you can pick up 1 here, 1 there, 2 at the end, to come back. And so the bullpen plays a significant role in that. But in terms of sustainability, I'm kind of the mind that in general, you're going to ultimately perform at your baseline talent level in all situations. The one thing that we did note yesterday was that in these high leverage situations, the Giants' strikeout rate was like way down compared to their strikeout rate in general. And so that is one thing that I will be very curious to monitor as the season goes along, to see, like, because that could be an approach thing. And we also pointed out, by the way, they've been below average in situational at-bats, like runner on third, less than 2 outs, getting the guy in, runner on second, no outs, getting the guy to third. They have been below average in both of those categories. So it's not that. It's not like sack fly city over here. It's high leverage production, like production in high leverage situations. Those are different things. Because like I said, you could be down, like I said yesterday, you could be down or up by like 8 runs with a runner on third, or even like 5 runs, runner on third, less than 2 outs. It doesn't make it a high leverage situation. That makes it a situational at bat situation. But anyway, their overall strikeout rate is like 23%, and their strikeout rate in high leverage situations has been like 14%. And so is that just a fluke, or is that something? And if it is something that they're able to like bear down, and I think it is, like they're all kind of just belief. I think belief goes a long way in this case. Like I really do. If you as a team believe you're going to find a way to come back and win a game, then that matters. And that's why I do think that the addition of Willy Adames, like even though he's struggled, it feels like he's added so much value. But you look at the wins above replacement and you're looking at a negative number. But if you look at the personality above replacement, it's off the charts. And so I don't know. Can you sustain it over 162? No, I think they'll go through their struggles, and you can't just keep this up. You can. We saw it in 2021, 106 win pace. They won 107 in 2021. But do I think they will? No, I think they'll go through their struggles, but hopefully they can continue to be very, very grindy and gritty like they've been. And I can see that continuing, in part because it's like an identity thing and they've taken it on. So anyway, they're not without their warts though. So coming up in just a minute, can Elliot Ramos stop swinging at high pitches? Did my dad write this question? We'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, Today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. Oh, yes. The Golden State Warriors pulling out a huge win last night against the Houston Rockets, up 3-1. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking the Warriors or diving into player props, from three-pointers, which is always fun to bet on with Steph Curry on your team, to steals, to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, here we go. We are going to get to these last couple of questions. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll be breaking down game 1 of this series in San Diego. It's a 2-game series. You've got two pitchers pitching extremely well with Logan Webb and Nick Pivetta. Webb with a 1.98 ERA, Pivetta 1.20. So great matchup here in San Diego. And we'll be breaking it down tomorrow. And so, yeah, getting to some more questions. EJ Kallman, possibly my dad's burner account. Just kidding. He definitely doesn't have a Twitter. Says, can Elliot stop swinging at high pitches? And can Matos improve pitch recognition and selectivity? So, not to call you out, Dad, but my dad also points out all the time that Elliot Ramos had a tendency to be swinging at high pitches out of the zone. And so, obviously that was happening for a period of time. And if you look at his outside the zone swing rate in his career, it's up. It's up this year. Last year it was 28.7%. Not just literally like up out of the zone. I mean, just swinging at pitches that are not strikes. Last year, he swung 29% of the time. This year, 35% of the time. So up 6 points. So you are seeing more chase out of Elliot Ramos. Somehow he's translated that to an identical walk rate as last year, 7.1%. But yeah, there has been more chase. Although I think Ramos was scuffling and now he's come out of it to the point where he's been better recently. And so this is a young player and baseball is extremely hard. And I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he obviously doesn't want to swing at a pitch that's up out of the strike zone. And so it's just like the question is, can he? I think he can. Will he? I don't know. But it'll affect his career whether or not he can. Like, being selective and not chasing is a big part of being a successful major league hitter, because if they start to discover that you're swinging at that pitch, they're going to keep throwing it, as we've seen. So the numbers are definitely down this year for Ramos. Last year, overall, 269 average. This year, it's 246. Last year, 322 on base. This year, 310. Last year, this is the big one, 469 slugging. This year, 386. The isolated power, last year, 200. This year, 140. So he's hit for more like middling power this year versus significantly better than average power last year. And so that's what I'm more interested to see. And it does have a lot to do with chasing. Like, because if you lay off that pitch, you get into hitters counts, and then they're forced to throw you something over the middle, and then hopefully you can crush it. Also, I do believe his numbers against lefties have not been anything close to as good, and that would be something I kind of maybe care more about. Yeah, he's been only like mediocre against lefties, whereas he was like Aaron Judge against lefties last season, and his numbers against righties have actually been a little better this year. He's been mediocre against both lefties and righties. So just overall kind of mediocre so far offensively, but I'm giving him time. He had a big slump towards the end in September of last year, and then he climbed out of it, and he started out slumping in April and May of last year, and then he went way above it in June. And so he's been on the upswing here lately, so hopefully he can keep it going in San Diego. When it comes to Matos, unfortunately, it's been a familiar scene where he's had some hot stretches, but then overall just has been very unproductive at the plate. And I don't really know what to make of it, except to say that in his career now, he's come up to bat about 450 times, and he's been 30% below average, and he hasn't played good defense. A lot of that was being miscast as a center fielder for a time, but we're talking negative 1.5 FanGraphs wins above replacement in his major league career. He is 23 years old, so we're still talking about a young player, but it's not that there's a ton of chase and he's actually like not striking out at all. It's just he's just not making great contact, evidently, because he's putting the ball in play a lot, but making a ton of outs. So that's a suboptimal combination there. So young player, both of them, and I'm not giving up on them. But the question was, can Matos improve? Yeah, anybody can improve, but will they? That remains to be seen. And I know you probably meant will they, and the answer is I don't know. Baseball is weird. Like sometimes, like Ramos last year, all of a sudden, a guy who's struggled just breaks out and breaks through. And so we'll see. They'll continue to get opportunities. It's tough for a guy like Matos who's not playing all the time. So last question. This is one actually that I wish I could talk about more, but Stephen H. says, when will baseball people decide analytics has betrayed catchers with their one knee setup, especially with a runner on third? So this gets talked about a lot on broadcasts, and maybe people think of it independently too, like that style is costing them pass balls and wild pitches with a runner on third, because they're not blocking the ball and it gets away. We saw it happen twice to Sam Huff recently in a costly way. But here's the thing. There was an article that I read like within the last 12 months that was all about this, and the data, it's very simple to like look up the wild pitch, like wild pitches plus pass balls, or just wild pitches, or just pass balls, whatever it was looked at scientifically and thoroughly, and there's been no change to like wild pitches and pass balls in the like decades. It hasn't changed. And so it's a myth that this style is leading to an increase in wild pitches and pass balls. It's just not happening. The data just does not back that up at all. And it's when we say, is it that analytics has betrayed catchers? Well, quite the opposite, I would say. If you focused more on blocking and less on framing, that would be betraying teams and catchers, because framing every pitch, we could do a whole episode about how a strike versus a ball makes a dramatic difference in outcomes for the at-bat. And so being able to get strikes on borderline pitches versus them being balls makes so much more of a difference over the course of a season than blocking. If it was significantly hurting blocking ability, then maybe with a runner on third, they shouldn't do it. But the evidence and data is just that that's not the case. Even though it gets said all the time, there isn't any evidence for it from what I understand. And I read an article that was all about this. So hopefully I'll find it and I can share it. But that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, I'm Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out tremendously. So thank you in advance. And thanks to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked on Giants.